Welcome to Writer Wednesday. Woo! If you've noticed, I'm wearing the same hoodie that I have been wearing in several of these. That's because I record several at once. And I didn't feel like doing my hair today. I put a little bit of makeup on. I didn't change. That's not my style, I'm gonna be honest. No, I am a keyboard goblin. I don't do that. I'm not gonna put a full face of makeup on. I didn't even turn my light on. It's unplugged. I had to clean off my desk because it was covered in drywall dust. I haven't turned it back on. I don't feel like climbing down under my desk and plugging it in. Oh, my voice just cracked like a teenage boy. My throat's a little doing several of these episodes has not been helping. Don't worry, I have some hot coffee. I am B.B. Morgan, Beatrice B. Morgan. I write fantasy, romantic fantasy, a little bit of Gaslamp fantasy, a little bit of horror and dark fantasy. I've been dabbling in horror a little bit. I'm not very good at it, but I'm enjoying myself, and I think that's what counts. This is my little corner of YouTube where I talk about writing, publishing, being an author, being a reader. I talk about books and all that kinds of fun stuff. Today, I wanted to talk about something that kind of came up as like a side tangent to another one of these Writer Wednesdays that I did, and I've been thinking about it ever since. And that is how this year in particular, I have been writing less. However, I've been reading a lot more. I kind of put this challenge on myself to read more. So while I was writing Stars and Bones, my epic romantic fantasy series, I was writing a lot. I wrote that, what would become a 6-book series. It was at the time a 5-book series. I wrote that, and then while I was writing that in between drafts, I wrote a Gaslamp fantasy trilogy. And I wrote the first drafts for several other projects, and I made a lot of notes. And basically, I was writing a tremendous amount. Now, here in 2025, I am writing considerably less. But I've been reading more. Because I noticed that I was not hitting my Goodreads goal. I was not reading as much as I thought I should. There were so many books coming out that I wasn't, reading because I just didn't have the time. Because I was writing too much. I don't really remember when this epiphany occurred to me, but I noticed that I wasn't reading all the books that I probably should read that would have been really good comps for my books. And if they're in the same genre as my books, I probably would really enjoy them anyway. So it's not really a New Year's resolution. It was more of just I need to change something. And so I made the new decree for myself where I would only write on the weekend. And then throughout the work week, Monday through Friday, I would read. I would not work on one of my books. Instead, I would read. I also upgraded my Spotify so where I can listen to audiobooks on the way to work. And while I'm playing Minecraft or something, and where I would usually have a YouTube video playing on my second monitor, I will have an audiobook going. And I have consumed twice as many books as I have in some other years, which is great. I have read so many books this year that were absolutely fantastic. I have read some that are not so fantastic, but I'm glad I read them because I got to experience them. I honestly feel that my writing has improved because I've been reading more and writing less. Here's the crazy part. I know some other authors also have this issue where they think that they'll never have more ideas or that they'll run out of ideas. A year or two ago, I was kind of in this same crisis where I was not having a lot of ideas enter my brain versus that part of my life where I was writing Stars and Bones and I was just having ideas and ideas and ideas and ideas. So just all the ideas. And then they slowed down. And then you hit that crisis of, what if I never have any ideas? What if this is it? However, since I've been reading a lot more and writing less, I have been having less ideas, but the ideas that I'm having are better. They're more refined. And I don't know if that's just because I have spent the last 10 years dealing with all these ideas that I get, and I know what I need within an idea for it to continue on and snowball in the lobe that where all my creative stuff is stored until it becomes a story idea, before it becomes a first chapter, before it becomes a premise or an inciting incident or a character with flaws. And I am much better at like picking the good ideas out and letting the bad ideas just kind of, or letting the bad ideas, let's not call them bad ideas, they're more unfinished ideas, just letting them sit up there until other ideas come and like they merge into a new and better idea. So the ideas that I'm having for books and like scenes within the books that I'm working on are much better. It doesn't feel like I'm just rewriting the same story over and over. That was one fear that I did have when I was writing, I don't remember what it was, but I remember it's a work in progress that I have, that it was just, it felt so much like all the other books that I had written, and it was like, am I just recycling the same ideas over and over again? And I've also noticed that my first drafts are much cleaner. Or my first drafts, I say like my draft 0, like my rough draft, like the very first draft after I like, okay, I have an idea, I have the essence of a plot, let's outline. And then I take that outline and I move it into rough draft, which is me telling me the story, right? This happens, this character does this happens, this is how they feel about it. It's basically a real quick synopsis, right, of me explaining the story and the plot and the character arc to myself. But what I have found is that my rough drafts, that very first draft, those are cleaner now than they were 5 years ago, 2 years ago. And the first drafts that I'm getting when I take that rough draft and I move it into the rough draft where I actually try to block out scenes and a dialogue, those drafts are so much cleaner now than they were when I was doing like Stars and Bones or Heart of Stone, even that Aladdin retelling that's sitting on my computer. I'm doing less revising now on my drafts than I was 5 years. Like Stars and Bones, for example, had to go through a shit ton of editing. There were I think 9 revisions on that book, and even the quartet that I'm working on now. The first book I think is on draft 9 because, and it's a little older because I think I started this book before Stars and Bones was finished, somewhere in that range. Like this is one of the books that I pumped out in that crazy period of my life where I was just writing and writing and writing. But book 2 of this quartet, I think, is on draft 7 or 8. And then book 3 that I'm working on right now, not like right now, but right now, it's on draft 4 and it shows. Because there's so much that I know needs to be fixed, and I have to be in like the peak mindset of the day in order to actually fix it. So like it's going a lot slower because I can only fix a little bit at a time because it takes so much brain power. And what I'm finding in this draft is that the main character just lacks initiative. Like in the second half of this book, she's not doing a whole lot, and there's too many main characters, and the main character just isn't the driving force of the plot that she needs to be. She's more has taken a back seat in these last few chapters, and I know I need to fix it. I just don't know quite how I want to yet. So I'm gonna let it sit for a little bit. However, I've noticed that like while I'm editing and I'm like drawing through these older drafts, I notice these things. I notice that the main character, they're not moving the plot forward with their decisions. The other characters are making all of the decisions. And I have a better sense of story structure and plot structure and character development and how characters need to interact to make it feel natural and at the same time worthy of being on the page and worthy of being worthy of the reader's time. And the best way to build those skills is to read the books that are selling well, to see what they're doing that's making them sell, how they're delivering on the premise, how they're delivering on like the promise of the book, and how the characters are developing, and how they've structured their plot, and how pieces of that plot are being divvied out to the reader. What the characters are saying, what's not quite being said, how do they hint at information, how how they do things. And reading is the absolute best way to do that. Of course, writing is like a very close number two, learning how to do that, but reading especially, getting all of these examples of well put together plots. And I've also noticed, you know, by reading so much more and taking in all of this creative work, I've noticed that my creative tank is never empty. Like, yes, I will have days where I get home from work and I'm too tired to actually sit down and like write anything. On the days where I have time to actually sit down and write, I can sit down and write. No, I'm not staring at a blank page nearly as much. And I hinted at this in like one of my other videos, and I'm like, no, I don't want to go off on that tangent just yet. So I've been thinking about this and thinking about this. How just by writing less, I'm writing better. And I'm writing, and it's almost as if I am putting out the same amount of writing. I'm just deleting less. Because before, when I would do like a rough draft or a first draft, I would delete a lot of it. I would go back and I would rewrite, and I would delete a lot within a draft. And I'm doing that less and less. The writing that I'm putting out it's like I'm skipping those first very messy outlines and the very messy rough drafts, and I am getting closer to that first draft. Because some of my first drafts have been real messy. Stars and Bones was very messy. That, I know I probably have mentioned this before, but I had to go back and basically rewrite book one, because I wrote book one, I wrote book two, and then I realized as I was writing book three that the magic system didn't make sense. And book two is really where I was setting down the rules for the magic. And then as I'm in there, I realized, oh no, I have changed the rules halfway through book two. So then I had to go back through book one and do an entire revision based on cleaning up the magic system and clarifying that magic system. And I have never done that again. Once I make the magic rules, I write them down in the Bible for that story, and those are the rules. Because I never want to do that to myself again. I learned a little something from every manuscript that I do, from every book that I do. And Stars and Bones was that I need to have the magic system down before I start writing, before I start changing rules. From this quartet that I'm working on right now, I have learned not to give myself an outrageously large cast of characters that I have to remember and deal with. Because right now, I'm on the second half of book three, and I have somehow ended up with like 14 characters. And that's an estimate. I don't know how many there are. I don't want to count them right now. There's at least like 11 that I have to figure out what they're doing during the sequence of events, and are all of them necessary? Can I leave some of them at this other location and give them like a little side quest they can do to occupy them, and so I don't have to worry about what they're doing during the climax of book three? Because there's just so many of them. And there have been a couple instances in this book where I am like going through and I will list every single character and what they're doing. And it's not pretty to read, but I know exactly what I was doing, which was just trying to make sure I remember all of the characters who are supposed to be here at this point in time and make sure they all have a purpose. And that is something I would definitely do within a draft. Like, okay, this is my list of characters. Here's what they're doing right now. I've already killed off one of them at the first half of book three. I chose the one that had the least amount of like narrative purpose. Got rid of them. I'm like, I can't kill off another one. That seems excessive. So far, they all kind of have a purpose to be there. Before I decided that before I make these, character killing decisions, I should finish this revision and then come back through it, trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. Because another problem I'm having with book three is that it's not quite as engaging as book one and two. And I think that's because the main character doesn't have a lot of agency. I just had a thought. You just witnessed me have a thought that might fix some of the problems that this book is having. There's one character that I could leave in the royal city. King could like keep her as like collateral. That way she is not with them. So that's another character I don't have to worry about. Could give them another layer of urgency why they have to break this curse as soon as possible. Well, I'm gonna go make note of that. And I finished all my bullet points. Had my little brain blast to how to fix this edit. And that is all I had for this Writer Wednesday. Thank you for joining me. I hope to see you in the next one. Or I won't see you, you will see me in the next one, but whatever. And if you liked, this little tidbit into the inside of what it's like to be an author, feel free to subscribe to my channel. I'll be doing more of these. Some of them are more coherent than others. I want to finish my playthrough of Stardew Valley, but here we are. I can't tell you the last time I got in there. I will eventually finish that playthrough on here. Recording isn't the problem. It's me having enough commentary during the playthrough and then me editing the video so where it's not an hour long and then uploading that hour-long video on backwater town internet that takes 20 hours to upload an hour. Yes, I'm not exaggerating. It takes that long. It's a very long time. But anyway, thank you for joining me. I will see you in the next Writer Wednesday.